The discovery. Jonas's boots crunched against the rocky surface of the alien planet, the sound barely audible over the faint hum of his oxygen mask. The air here was heavy with moisture, the ground coated in patches of moss that glowed faintly under the hazy twin suns. His ship, the Pathfinder, rested behind him on a nearby ridge, its sleek frame gleaming in the orange-pink light of the sky. This planet wasn't on any major exploration charts. Jonas had stumbled across it after a systems malfunction forced him to land for repairs. His AI assistant, Vera, had warned him against venturing too far from the ship, but Jonas's curiosity had always been stronger than his caution. "Jonas, I'm detecting unstable energy signatures in this area." Vera's calm voice crackled through his headset. "I suggest returning to the ship immediately." Jonas smirked. "Relax, Vera. I'm just taking a look. What's the worst that could happen?" He pushed through a dense cluster of ferns, their leaves shimmering with dew-like orbs that emitted soft, golden light. Beyond the foliage, the terrain opened up into a vast, rocky beach, the ground littered with jagged coral-like formations. But what caught Jonas's eye was something far more extraordinary. Lying partially submerged in the shallow waters was a massive creature. Its body was covered in barnacles and crustaceans, their sharp shells glinting like armor. The creature's skin, where it was visible, had a dull silver sheen, as if it had once been metallic but was now tarnished by time and decay. Its head, shaped like that of an ancient dragon from Earth's myths, rested limply on the ground. Jonas froze, his heart pounding. The sheer size of the creature was overwhelming. It could easily dwarf his ship. For a moment, he thought it was dead, but then he noticed a faint movement in its chest, a slow rise and fall as if it was struggling to breathe. "Vera," Jonas whispered, his voice shaky. "What is that?" There was a pause before Vera replied, her tone uncharacteristically uncertain. "Analyzing. This creature matches no known species in our database. However, its structure bears similarities to the mythological dragons from human folklore. Its condition suggests severe parasitic infestation. Jonas, I strongly recommend we leave." "Leave?" Jonas interrupted, stepping closer. "This thing's alive, Vera. We can't just walk away." He approached cautiously, the water lapping at his boots. Up close, the creature's condition looked even worse. The barnacles had latched onto its body like a second skin, their spiny edges digging deep into its flesh. Patches of its silvery scales were missing, replaced by festering wounds that oozed a dark, sticky liquid. The dragon's eye, half hidden beneath a thick crust of barnacles, fluttered open. Jonas froze again, meeting its gaze. There was no malice in its stare, only exhaustion and a haunting, ancient sorrow. "Jonas," Vera said, her voice sharper now, "this creature could be dangerous. If it awakens fully, it might attack. We don't know its intentions." Jonas ignored her, his eyes locked on the dragon's. "You're not going to hurt me, are you?" he murmured, though he wasn't sure if he was trying to reassure himself or the creature. He crouched by its massive head, reaching out to touch its rough, barnacle-covered skin. His hand hovered for a moment before he made contact. The dragon didn't flinch. Instead, it let out a low, rumbling sound, a mix between a growl and a groan. Jonas felt the vibrations travel through his body, not as a threat, but as a plea. "It's asking for help," Jonas said softly. "Jonas, this is reckless," Vera insisted. "If you interfere, you could endanger yourself and your mission. We need to." "Mission," Jonas snapped. "The mission can wait, Vera. I didn't come all this way to leave something like this to die." He stood and began inspecting the barnacles more closely. They weren't ordinary. Their shells had strange, glowing lines etched into them, pulsing with a faint blue light. When Jonas tried to pry one off, it resisted, emitting a sharp electric shock that made him stumble back. "Great," he muttered, shaking his stinging hand. "These things are alive too." "Jonas," Vera said, her tone softer now, "these barnacles are likely symbiotic parasites. Removing them could provoke a reaction from either the barnacles or the host. Proceed with extreme caution. Jonas stared at the dragon, his mind racing. He didn't have the tools to deal with something like this. His ship's medbay was designed for basic human injuries, not giant alien creatures. But the dragon didn't have time to wait for reinforcements, even if Jonas could call for them. He took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. Vera, start scanning for any materials on this planet that might help. Antitoxins, cutting tools, anything. We're not leaving until we help this thing. The dragon let out another rumble, quieter this time, as if acknowledging Jonas's decision. As Jonas turned back toward the jungle, a strange feeling washed over him, a mixture of fear, excitement, and an unshakable sense of purpose. He didn't know what he had gotten himself into, but one thing was certain: this discovery was going to change everything. The legend of the dragon. The dragon's labored breaths filled the air like the groaning of an ancient shipwreck in a storm. Jonas stood a few paces away, staring at the colossal creature, a whirlwind of questions spinning through his mind. Who, or what, was this being? And how had it ended up like this, abandoned and suffocating under layers of parasitic crust? Vera, Jonas said, breaking the heavy silence. What do we know about creatures like this? It looks ancient. Vera's voice crackled to life in his helmet. Scanning the database, cross-referencing results. Jonas, you might want to sit down for this. Jonas raised an eyebrow but remained standing. Go on. The structure of this being aligns with a nearly forgotten species from interstellar mythology. Vera began. They were known as stellar dragons, cosmic entities believed to have once roamed the stars, shaping galaxies and protecting planets. Records suggest they vanished millennia ago, presumed extinct. Jonas's jaw tightened. The words sounded like something out of a fairy tale, too fantastical to be real. But then again, he was standing in front of a living, breathing legend. Extinct, huh? Doesn't look so extinct to me. There's more, Vera continued. These dragons were said to be guardians of balance, revered by early civilizations across the galaxy. Some ancient texts even describe them as creators of life itself. If this is a true stellar dragon, its presence changes everything we know about the universe. Jonas felt a chill run down his spine. He'd signed up for exploration, for adventure, but he hadn't expected to stumble upon the stuff of myths. He glanced back at the dragon, its immense body trembling with every strained breath. For all its supposed power, it looked broken, defeated. Why would a creature like this end up here? Jonas muttered, more to himself than to Vera. Unclear, Vera replied. However, I've detected an anomaly in the barnacles covering its body. They appear to be a highly evolved parasitic species, likely extraterrestrial in origin. Their energy signature suggests they are actively draining the dragon's life force. Jonas clenched his fists. The idea of such a magnificent creature being reduced to this state, helpless and trapped, filled him with a deep, simmering anger. So these barnacles aren't just feeding off it, they're killing it. Precisely, Vera said. And if we don't act, this dragon will likely expire within days. Jonas paced back and forth, his mind racing. What happens if it dies? Would anyone even care? Jonas, Vera said, her tone uncharacteristically grave. The death of a stellar dragon could have far-reaching consequences. If the ancient texts are to be believed, these creatures are linked to the stability of the cosmos itself. Their extinction might disrupt galactic ecosystems, planetary orbits, even the fabric of space-time. Jonas stopped in his tracks, staring at the dragon as if seeing it for the first time. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. This was about survival, of the dragon, of humanity, of everything. Well, no pressure then, he muttered under his breath. As he turned back toward the jungle, he tried to push away the growing weight of responsibility. His hands tightened into fists. Vera, keep scanning for anything useful on this planet. I'll do whatever it takes to save this thing. If it really is what you say it is, then it deserves a chance. Vera hesitated before replying. Jonas, you're taking a monumental risk. Even if you succeed, the galactic authorities may not see this as a heroic act. They might consider it interference. Jonas shrugged, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Heroic? Interference? I don't care what they call it. Right now, there's a creature in front of me that needs help, and I'm not leaving until it gets it. He turned back toward the dragon. The creature's single visible eye flickered, its glow weak but undeniable. Jonas felt an odd connection in that moment, as if the dragon could see straight into his soul. It wasn't just a plea for help. It was trust. And Jonas wasn't going to betray that trust. Don't worry, big guy, Jonas said softly. You've been fighting alone for too long. You've got me now. The dragon let out a low, rumbling sound, almost like a sigh of relief. Jonas didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but he knew one thing for certain. This discovery wasn't just a turning point for him. It was the start of something far greater, something that would change the fate of the galaxy itself. The risky rescue plan. Jonas stood at the edge of the shallow waters, staring at the massive, barnacle-covered form of the stellar dragon. The weight of what lay ahead settled heavily on his shoulders. The creature's once majestic body was now a battlefield of decay, its life force slowly being drained by the parasitic crustaceans clinging to it. Each barnacle pulsed faintly, their eerie blue light casting unsettling shadows across the rocky shore. Vera, Jonas said, his voice steady but tense. If I don't do something, this thing's dead in a few days. What's my best shot at helping it? Vera's holographic projection flickered to life on Jonas's wrist display. The AI's usual calm demeanor seemed almost hesitant. The barnacles are deeply embedded into the dragon's tissue. Removing them will require precision and specialized tools. Tools we don't currently have. Additionally, they're emitting a neurotoxin that is weakening the host. Prolonged exposure could be harmful to you as well. Jonas frowned, glancing down at his utility belt. The meager tools he had, laser cutters, a multipurpose scanner, and a rudimentary medkit, felt laughably inadequate for this task. But giving up wasn't an option. Fine, he muttered. If the tools I need aren't here, I'll make them. He turned and jogged back toward the Pathfinder, the dragon's faint, labored breaths echoing in his ears. The ship sat perched on a rocky ridge, its sleek metallic surface scratched and weathered from countless missions. Inside, Jonas headed straight for the workbench in the maintenance bay. Vera, analyze the barnacle toxin, he ordered as he began rummaging through the ship's supplies. What's its primary effect, and how can I counter it? A stream of data scrolled across his wrist display. The toxin disrupts neural pathways, causing paralysis in small creatures and severe fatigue in larger ones. However, it also seems to inhibit the host's regenerative abilities, which is why the dragon's wounds aren't healing. Jonas paused, considering this. So if I can neutralize the toxin, the dragon might be able to fight back on its own. In theory, yes, Vera replied. But creating an antidote will require local resources. I've identified several plant species in the surrounding jungle with potential antitoxin properties. Great. Add those to the shopping list, Jonas said, grabbing a portable fabricator and a containment case. What about the barnacles themselves? Can I cut them off without hurting the dragon? Unlikely, Vera said. The barnacles are fused with its nervous system. Removing them manually will be painful and could cause further damage. You'll need to find a way to sever their connection without harming the host tissue. Jonas ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. So I can't cut them off, and I can't leave them. That's just fantastic. He glanced at a canister of high-energy plasma gel on the shelf, and an idea began to form. Plasma gel was normally used to weld damaged ship panels, but its unique properties made it ideal for isolating and neutralizing energy sources. If he could coat the barnacles with the gel, it might disrupt their energy flow long enough to weaken their grip. Vera, I'm going to try something risky, Jonas said, grabbing the canister. Prep the medbay for decontamination in case this backfires. Jonas, your plan lacks sufficient data to guarantee success, Vera warned. The likelihood of failure. I don't care about the odds, Jonas interrupted, strapping the canister to his belt. If this works, it could buy us the time we need. If it doesn't, well, at least I'll go down trying. He stepped back outside, the alien sun casting long shadows as it dipped closer to the horizon. The dragon's eye flickered open as Jonas approached, the faint glow within it dim but watchful. All right, big guy, Jonas said, crouching near the dragon's massive head. I'm going to try something that might sting a little. But if it works, you'll be one step closer to getting out of here. The dragon let out a low, rumbling sound, neither a growl nor a roar, but something in between. Jonas took it as a sign of reluctant trust. He approached the nearest cluster of barnacles, their spiny shells bristling as if sensing his presence. Carefully, he sprayed a thin layer of plasma gel over the cluster. The gel hissed and crackled as it made contact, the barnacles writhing in response. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sudden jolt, the barnacles' glow began to fade, their grip loosening slightly. Jonas grinned. Looks like we've got a winner. But the victory was short-lived. The other barnacles on the dragon's body began to glow brighter, their blue light intensifying as if they were reacting to the attack. The dragon let out a pained roar, its massive body convulsing. Jonas, the barnacles are responding defensively, Vera said urgently. You've triggered a systemic reaction. Proceed with caution. Jonas gritted his teeth, his heart pounding. Hold on, buddy, he said to the dragon. We're just getting started. Alien interference. The sound of the dragon's strained breathing echoed like distant thunder as Jonas worked furiously, coating another cluster of barnacles with plasma gel. The alien crustaceans writhed and hissed, their faint blue glow flickering as they released their grip. Jonas wiped the sweat from his brow, his pulse racing. Each barnacle he removed felt like a small victory, but the dragon's condition still teetered on the edge of catastrophe. Vera, how are we doing on time? Jonas asked, his voice laced with urgency. The dragon's vital signs are stabilizing slightly, but the neurotoxin levels are still dangerously high, Vera replied. I estimate less than 6 hours before irreversible damage sets in. Jonas swore under his breath and moved to another patch of barnacles near the dragon's ribcage. The creature let out a low rumble as he worked, a sound that Jonas took as both gratitude and pain. But then, something changed. The air around him grew heavy, crackling with an unfamiliar energy. Jonas froze, his hand hovering over the next cluster of barnacles. Vera, what's happening? I'm detecting multiple life forms approaching at high speed, Vera said, her voice sharp with warning. They are not native to this planet. Jonas turned his gaze toward the horizon, where faint shapes began to materialize in the orange glow of the setting suns. At first, they looked like drifting clouds, but as they drew closer, their forms became clear, sleek, insect-like ships, their hulls shimmering with iridescent patterns. Scavengers, Jonas muttered, his stomach sinking. Scavenger crews were notorious in uncharted systems, preying on anything of value. Ruins, rare creatures, even living beings. If they had detected the dragon, they wouldn't hesitate to claim it as their prize. Jonas, they've initiated a descent trajectory, Vera said. You need to retreat immediately. Jonas glanced back at the dragon, its enormous eye fluttering open to meet his gaze. The creature's exhaustion was palpable, but there was something else in its look, a flicker of fear, as if it understood the danger approaching. I'm not leaving, Jonas said firmly, grabbing his plasma cutter and turning toward the incoming ships. The scavenger vessels landed in a semicircle around him, their sleek legs digging into the rocky terrain. A hiss of steam erupted as their doors opened, and a group of alien figures emerged. They were tall and gaunt, with segmented exoskeletons that glinted under the fading sunlight. Their elongated heads bore multiple eyes, each glowing faintly in the dim light. One of them stepped forward, holding a staff tipped with a pulsating orb of energy. Its voice was a harsh, clicking sound, but Jonas's translator chip rendered it into words. "Step away from the creature, human. This is sacred property of the Valathar Scavenger Guild." Jonas raised his hand slightly, keeping his plasma cutter in view. "Sacred property. That's rich, considering you're probably here to strip it for parts." The leader tilted its head, its many eyes narrowing. "You misunderstand. This being is of immense value to us. Its remains will fund entire generations of our people. Stand down, and you may leave with your life." Jonas clenched his jaw. "It's not dead yet, and as long as I'm here, it's not going to be." The scavengers hissed in unison, their movements sharp and insect-like as they spread out, forming a perimeter. Jonas's mind raced. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and miles from his ship. But he wasn't about to back down. "Vera," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "Can the dragon defend itself if it wakes up fully?" "Potentially, yes," Vera replied. "But its current state renders it incapable of coordinated action. You'll need to buy it more time." Jonas nodded, gripping his plasma cutter tightly. "Then we stall." He stepped forward, putting himself between the scavengers and the dragon. "You want this creature? You're going to have to go through me." The scavenger leader paused, seemingly taken aback by Jonas's defiance. "You are one human against an entire guild. You have no chance." "Maybe," Jonas said with a smirk, "but I'm really stubborn." The tension broke as one of the scavengers lunged forward, its staff glowing with energy. Jonas dodged to the side, activating his plasma cutter in a single fluid motion. The weapon hummed to life, its blade slicing through the air with a sharp hiss. The fight was on. The dragon awakens. The battlefield was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of energy weapons and the distant, labored breaths of the dragon. Jonas crouched behind a jagged outcrop of coral-like rock, his chest heaving as he tried to catch his breath. His plasma cutter flickered weakly in his hand, its energy reserves nearly depleted. Around him, the scavengers moved like shadows, their segmented bodies glinting in the pale light of the twin moons. "Vera," Jonas whispered, his voice trained. "Status on the dragon." Vera's response crackled through his headset. "The creature's vital signs are stabilizing, but it remains critically weak. Neural activity is increasing. It's responding to the reduced toxin levels. Jonas, if you can hold out a little longer, it may regain enough strength to act." Jonas peered over the edge of his cover, his gaze shifting to the massive form of the dragon. The barnacles that had once coated its body were now reduced to lifeless husks, their faint blue glow extinguished. The dragon's bioluminescent scales had begun to flicker faintly, like embers struggling to ignite. A sudden noise behind him snapped Jonas back to the present. He spun around just in time to dodge a scavenger's staff as it slammed into the ground where he had been standing. The alien hissed in frustration, its many eyes gleaming with anger. "You cannot win, human," the scavenger snarled, its voice a chilling mix of clicks and growls. "This creature is ours." Jonas tightened his grip on the plasma cutter, his expression defiant. "Over my dead body." With a quick flick of his wrist, he activated the cutter, its blade slicing through the air in a brilliant arc. The scavenger recoiled, its exoskeleton sparking where the blade had grazed it. Jonas didn't waste a second, darting toward the dragon. If he was going to survive this, he needed to get closer to the only thing that could turn the tide. As he reached the dragon's massive head, he placed a hand on its tarnished scales. The creature's eye flickered open, its golden light weak but steady. For a moment, Jonas felt a strange connection, as if the dragon was trying to communicate with him. It wasn't just a plea for help. It was a bond, an unspoken promise of trust. "You've got to wake up," Jonas murmured, his voice barely audible. I can't hold them off much longer. The dragon let out a low rumble, the sound vibrating through Jonas's body. Its bioluminescent scales began to glow brighter, the light spreading across its massive form like wildfire. The scavengers paused in their advance, their eyes narrowing as they sensed the shift. "Vera," Jonas said, his voice laced with both hope and urgency, "tell me that's what I think it is." "It appears the dragon is reactivating its core energy systems," Vera replied. "If it completes the process, it could unleash a defensive response powerful enough to neutralize all threats." One of the scavenger leaders hissed sharply, gesturing toward the dragon. "Stop the awakening. Now." The scavengers charged as one, their weapons raised and their alien voices echoing across the battlefield. Jonas positioned himself between them and the dragon, his plasma cutter raised. He knew he couldn't fight them all, but he didn't need to. He just needed to buy a few more seconds. "Come on, big guy," Jonas said under his breath, glancing back at the dragon. "Any time now." The scavengers closed in, their weapons crackling with energy. Jonas braced himself, preparing for the inevitable, when a deafening roar shattered the night. The sound was unlike anything he had ever heard, a primal, otherworldly cry that seemed to shake the very air around them. The dragon rose, its massive wings unfurling and scattering the remaining barnacle shells like dust. Its bioluminescent scales burned with a brilliance that lit up the entire area, casting long shadows over the terrified scavengers. Its golden eyes locked onto the invaders, and for the first time, Jonas saw the full extent of its power. What is that?" One of the scavengers stammered, its voice trembling. "The end of your plans," Jonas said with a grin. The dragon reared back, its chest glowing with an intense light. Then, with a single earth-shaking roar, it unleashed a wave of energy that rippled across the battlefield. The scavengers were thrown back like ragdolls, their ships and weapons disintegrating under the sheer force of the blast. Jonas shielded his eyes as the wave passed over him, its warmth strangely comforting. When he looked up, the battlefield was silent. The scavengers were gone, their presence erased as if they had never been there. The dragon stood tall, its glowing form a beacon of life and power. "Not bad," Jonas said, his voice tinged with awe. "Not bad at all." The dragon lowered its massive head, its golden eyes meeting Jonas's once more. There was no malice in its gaze, only gratitude. Jonas felt a swell of emotion as he realized what had just happened. He hadn't just saved the dragon. It had saved him, too. The final battle. The air crackled with the remnants of the dragon's energy wave, a tangible hum that seemed to resonate through Jonas's very bones. The battlefield was littered with the remains of scavenger equipment, twisted and scorched by the dragon's unleashed power. For a fleeting moment, it seemed like the worst was over. Then the sky darkened. Jonas squinted upward, his stomach sinking as a massive shadow descended through the clouds. A scavenger mothership, its hulking form blotting out the twin moons, hovered above. Unlike the smaller vessels, this ship was heavily armored, bristling with weapons that glowed ominously against the darkening sky. "Jonas," Vera said, her voice unusually tense, "the mothership's weapon systems are charging. Its energy signature indicates it's capable of planetary bombardment." Jonas's heart raced. A single shot from that ship could obliterate the entire area, dragon included. He glanced at the stellar dragon, its bioluminescent scales still glowing faintly. The creature had unleashed an incredible burst of power, but it was clear that it wasn't at full strength yet. "This just keeps getting better," Jonas muttered. "Vera, give me options." "Retreat is advisable," Vera suggested. "The mothership's firepower far exceeds anything we've encountered." Jonas shook his head, gripping his plasma cutter tightly. "Not an option. If I run, that thing kills us both. We have to fight." As if sensing the new threat, the dragon let out a deep growl, its golden eyes locking onto the looming mothership. Jonas watched as the creature unfurled its wings, stretching them wide. The ground beneath them trembled as the dragon began to rise, its movements slow but purposeful. "You're not ready for this, big guy," Jonas said, stepping closer to the dragon's massive head. "We need a plan." The dragon tilted its head slightly, as if considering Jonas's words. Then, with surprising delicacy, it extended a single claw toward him. At first, Jonas didn't understand, but then he noticed the faint glow emanating from the claw, a concentrated pulse of energy, waiting to be harnessed. "Vera," Jonas said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and apprehension. "Is it offering me something?" "Analyzing. It appears to be transferring a portion of its energy reserves to you," Vera replied. "This could enhance your equipment and potentially allow you to disrupt the mothership's systems." Jonas hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward. He placed his hand on the glowing claw, and a surge of energy shot through him. His plasma cutter flared to life, its blade now a brilliant gold, humming with newfound power. The energy coursing through his body felt almost overwhelming, but it was balanced by a strange sense of clarity, as if the dragon's instincts were guiding him. "All right," Jonas said, taking a deep breath. "Let's do this." The mothership unleashed its first salvo, a barrage of energy beams that scorched the ground around them. Jonas sprinted toward the ship's closest landing pod, his movements faster and more precise than ever before. He leaped onto the pod's hull, using the enhanced plasma cutter to carve through its armor. Sparks flew as he pried open a hatch and climbed inside. "Jonas, you're entering the mothership's auxiliary systems," Vera informed him. "If you can disable their main weapon array, it will force them to retreat." "On it," Jonas said, navigating the ship's cramped corridors. Scavenger crew members hissed and lunged at him, but his enhanced reflexes made quick work of them. The plasma cutter moved like an extension of his will, slicing through obstacles with ease. Meanwhile, outside, the dragon roared again, its massive wings sending shockwaves through the air. It took to the skies, its bioluminescent scales blazing like a star as it engaged the mothership directly. Energy blasts from the ship rained down, but the dragon weaved through them with a grace that defied its size. Inside the mothership, Jonas reached the control room. A massive console dominated the space, its surface covered in glowing symbols. He placed his hand on the panel, channeling the dragon's energy into the ship's systems. The console sparked and flickered, the alien script dissolving into static. "Primary weapon array disabled," Vera announced. "But you need to leave now. The ship's reactor is destabilizing." Jonas didn't need to be told twice. He sprinted back the way he came, narrowly avoiding collapsing corridors and exploding conduits. He leaped from a hatch just as the mothership began to list, its massive frame breaking apart in a cascade of fire and debris. The dragon swooped in, catching Jonas on its massive wing as the mothership fell from the sky, crashing into the ocean below. The shockwave rippled across the planet, but the danger was gone. The scavengers were defeated. Jonas clung to the dragon's wing, looking down at the smoldering wreckage below. "That was close," he said, his voice shaky with exhaustion. "Too close." The dragon let out a low, triumphant roar, its golden eyes glowing with pride. Jonas smiled, feeling a strange sense of camaraderie with the ancient creature. Together, they had faced impossible odds and won. The bond. The morning sky was painted in hues of gold and crimson as the stellar dragon soared high above the shimmering ocean. Its colossal wings cut through the air with effortless grace, leaving trails of faint bioluminescent light in its wake. Jonas clung to one of its scales, marveling at the vast landscape below. Lush jungles, jagged cliffs, and crystalline waters reflecting the glow of the twin suns. For the first time in days, the silence wasn't oppressive. It was peaceful. Jonas leaned back against the dragon's warm, metallic skin, his body aching from the battle, but his spirit alight. "Vera, status check," he said, breaking the silence. "Your vital signs are stable, though I recommend rest," Vera replied. The dragon's condition has significantly improved. Its energy levels are now at approximately 75% and climbing. Jonas chuckled softly. 75%, huh? I don't even want to know what 100 looks like. The dragon rumbled beneath him, a sound that Jonas recognized now as something close to a chuckle. It had been hours since the scavenger mothership had been destroyed, and in that time, the bond between them had grown deeper. Jonas no longer felt like a lone explorer stumbling through an alien world. He felt like a partner in something far greater. As they approached the coastline, the dragon began to descend, its wings creating gentle gusts that stirred the treetops below. It landed gracefully on a wide plateau overlooking the ocean. Jonas slid down its side, landing with a grunt before turning to face the massive creature. "Well," Jonas said, wiping sweat from his brow. "We made it. Didn't think I'd live to say that." The dragon lowered its massive head, its golden eyes locking onto Jonas. There was an intensity in its gaze, a weight of ancient knowledge and understanding that words couldn't capture. Jonas stepped closer, placing a hand on its rough, shimmering scales. "I don't know if you can understand me," Jonas said softly, "but I just want you to know. I didn't do this for glory or fame. I did it because it was the right thing to do." The dragon let out a low melodic hum, a sound that resonated deep in Jonas's chest. He felt a wave of emotions wash over him. Gratitude, respect, and something deeper, almost spiritual. It was as if the dragon was saying, "I know." Vera's voice broke the moment. "Jonas, I've completed a detailed analysis of the dragon's energy signature. It appears to be emitting a unique signal, one that may attract others of its kind." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "Wait, you're saying there might be more of these things out there?" "It's a possibility," Vera replied. "The signal is faint, but it's spreading rapidly. If there are other stellar dragons, this one may be calling to them." Jonas turned back to the dragon, his mind racing. "You're not just a survivor," he said. "You're a beacon. You're bringing your kind back." The dragon tilted its head, as if acknowledging Jonas's words. Then, with a powerful flap of its wings, it rose into the air, its bioluminescent scales glowing brighter than ever. Jonas watched in awe as it hovered above the plateau, its form silhouetted against the rising suns. As the dragon ascended higher, it let out a deafening roar, a sound so powerful it seemed to shake the very fabric of the sky. The signal carried far and wide, a message to the stars. Jonas could only imagine what distant ears might be hearing it. The dragon descended one last time, landing briefly beside Jonas. It extended a massive claw, holding out a small, glowing crystal. Jonas took it carefully, feeling its warmth in his hand. "Vera," he asked, studying the crystal. "It appears to be a fragment of its core energy," Vera explained. "A gift, perhaps, a symbol of trust and connection." Jonas stared at the crystal, his heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The dragon let out a final, gentle rumble before launching itself into the sky. Jonas watched as it disappeared into the horizon, its light growing fainter until it was just a speck against the infinite expanse. He stood there for a long time, the crystal glowing faintly in his hand. He didn't know what the future held, whether the dragon's call would bring others, or what the galaxy would make of this incredible discovery. But for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. "This is only the beginning," Jonas said, a smile tugging at his lips. And with that, he turned toward his ship, ready to share the story of the day one human stood side by side with a legend and helped reignite hope in the stars.